I'm a 25-year-old guy, and I've been with my girlfriend, Sarah, 24F, for 6 years now. Until very recently, I truly believed she was the one. I never really questioned our relationship or imagined a different kind of future. That changed after I started a new career and met my work partner. A few months ago, I switched careers and got paired up with a new partner at work, a 29-year-old guy. We spend more than 40 hours a week together, so naturally, we've gotten pretty close. He's been married for about a year, but he and his wife have been together for 7 years total. Over time, we started talking about eventually doing a double date so our significant others could finally meet. When I brought this idea up to Sarah, her reaction caught me off guard. She was very against it from the start. To be honest, she hasn't been supportive of this career change in general, even though I'm making more money and have significantly better benefits. She doesn't like my hours, and she often says things like, "Everyone in your profession ends up cheating." When I mentioned the double date, she became distant and defensive. I don't remember her exact words, but it was something along the lines of, "Why would I want to spend time with these people and give him the idea that he's close to you or could ever know you better than I do?" That response didn't fully make sense to me at the time. After talking it through a bit more, it seemed like she felt threatened by my partner. Because we spend so much time together, and with my schedule, her part-time job, and her being in university full-time, we only get to see each other 2 or 3 times a week. I think she felt like she was slowly being replaced. I reassured her as best as I could. I told her she was my #1 priority and that my partner was just a guy I worked with, someone I didn't really have a choice about spending time with. After that conversation, the topic was dropped, and we didn't talk about it again for a couple of weeks. Then, a few weeks later, I went out to a bar with my cousin. Sarah had been invited, but she declined because she doesn't like my cousin. She finds him too loud and too blunt. While we were there, I unexpectedly ran into my work partner and his wife. It was the first time I had ever met her. From the very first moment, she was completely different from my girlfriend. She was extremely outgoing and full of energy. As soon as my partner introduced me, she got genuinely excited and immediately started telling me about all the funny stories she had heard about me from her husband. I was honestly a bit stunned by how warm and open she was. Up until that point, my girlfriend had made me feel like her reluctance to meet or socialize with my coworkers was totally normal. I had convinced myself that this was just how most people felt in relationships. But standing there, talking to my partner's wife, I started to question that assumption. Without hesitation, she jumped right into saying how we all needed to get together soon. Watching the two of them interact was eye-opening. They played off each other effortlessly, almost like a two-person comedy act. There was energy, laughter, and ease between them that I realized was largely missing from my own relationship. And in that moment, I felt something I wasn't prepared for: jealousy. Not because of attraction, but because I started wondering what kind of relationship I could be in and whether the one I had was really the right fit for me anymore. That night, I had a bit too much to drink, and in a moment of lowered guard, I ended up mentioning to my partner's wife that my girlfriend was uncomfortable with my job because of the reputation people associate with my field. She laughed lightly, not in a dismissive way, but more like she'd heard it all before. She told me that people say the exact same things to her all the time, but that she trusts her husband completely. According to her, when people make those comments, she just shrugs them off and doesn't give them any weight. The next day at work, my partner pulled me aside and told me something that surprised me. Apparently, while we were at the bar, my cousin had been talking to his wife privately. During that conversation, my cousin admitted that he doesn't even like Sarah. That was news to me. I had no idea he felt that way. My partner said that whatever my cousin told her after that made her wife uncomfortable. She had been really excited about the idea of all of us spending time together, but now she was worried that my girlfriend wouldn't like her at all. I asked him what exactly my cousin had said, but he either didn't know the details or chose not to repeat them. That evening, I casually mentioned the bar encounter to Sarah. I told her that I had run into my work partner and his wife, and that his wife seemed really eager to finally meet her. Sarah didn't react well. She immediately shut the idea down, saying she was too busy and had no interest in pretending to be best friends with people who think they're so close to me. It was late, and I didn't feel like starting another argument, so I dropped the subject. Still, it stuck with me. The more these situations happened, the harder it became not to notice how completely opposite these two women were, and how differently they responded to even small social interactions. Then, yesterday happened. My work partner and I had an extremely early meeting scheduled in a city about an hour and a half away. The night before, we weren't getting out of work until around 10 p.m., and we had to be up by 4:30 the next morning. Knowing how tight the schedule was, my partner offered to let me stay at his place since he lives about an hour closer to the meeting location. I was already feeling overwhelmed. On top of everything else, I hadn't had time to properly prepare my suit. In my line of work, looking professional and well put together isn't optional, it's expected. Panicking a bit, I called Sarah and asked her if she could go to my apartment. We don't live together, but she has a key. I asked her if she could set out and prep a suit for me, since I knew she wasn't doing anything else that night. She got really angry. First, she was upset that I was even staying at my partner's house. Then the conversation escalated quickly, and she accused me of treating me like a servant for asking her to help me with this. That accusation really hurt. In 6 years together, I've never asked her to do anything like this before. But I'm still very new in my position. I was under pressure and I was genuinely overwhelmed. She said she had too much work to do and flat out refused. At that point, I didn't even try to argue. I rushed home after work, grabbed everything I needed, and drove straight to my partner's place. I must have looked visibly stressed because the moment I walked through the door, his wife immediately asked me what was wrong. And honestly, I just unloaded everything. I told her how exhausted I was, how nervous I felt about the meeting the next morning, how overwhelming this new role has been, and how Sarah had snapped at me and refused to help. I wasn't trying to complain or paint anyone as the bad guy. I was just tired and emotionally drained. She listened for a moment, nodded, and then calmly said, "Okay, we'll circle back to the Sarah situation another time. For now, go sit down, relax, and I'll get your suit ready." I tried to stop her. I told her I felt bad, that she didn't need to do that it wasn't her responsibility. She didn't argue. She didn't make a big deal of it either. She simply ignored my protests, set up the ironing board, and took care of it. That moment hit me harder than I expected. Not because of the act itself, but because of what it represented. It showed me very clearly how different these two situations were, and how a genuinely supportive partner can look like when someone they care about is under pressure. Today, I got off work really early. I've barely spoken to Sarah all day. Now I'm sitting alone in my apartment, drinking beers by myself, which I almost never do, and just thinking about everything. I don't have feelings for my partner's wife. I'm not attracted to her in that way, and I don't want to cross any lines. But she seems to naturally embody so many of the qualities I feel like I've been missing in my own relationship. And realizing that has made me feel jealous, frustrated, and honestly, a little lost. At the same time, this is a 6-year relationship. That's not something I want to throw away lightly. If this is something that can be worked through, I want to try. I just don't know if what I'm feeling is a legitimate concern, or if I'm falling into the classic "the grass is greener" mindset.
I've noticed that a lot of the same questions keep coming up in the comments, so instead of replying to them one by one, I wanted to clarify a few things here. First, the reason we don't live together. Before I got this new job, I simply wasn't making enough money. My apartment is very small and realistically not designed for 2 people. At the same time, Sarah is currently working on her master's degree and only has a part-time job with low pay. She doesn't want to contribute to rent so that we could move into a larger place together, and because of that, she still lives at home with her parents. Even with my new position, I still can't afford a bigger apartment entirely on my own, while also paying student loans, utilities, car payments, insurance, and other necessary expenses. My car, especially, is not optional where I live. Second, about how often we see each other. I know that seeing each other 2 or 3 times a week might not sound like much to some people, but we spend all of my days off together. This isn't a recent change either. Even before my new job, we didn't see each other more often. My old job was still 40+ hours a week, and I was also in school at the time. Another thing I want to address is the introvert comment. A lot of people seem to think I mentioned her being introverted as a criticism. It's not. I don't think being introverted is a bad thing at all. For a long time, I was actually perfectly content with not seeing friends very often either. What has changed is me. My new job is very social by nature, and I've realized that I enjoy being more outgoing than I used to be. This doesn't mean I want to go out every night or that I suddenly want a party lifestyle. I see my friends or my cousin maybe once every month or 2. I don't go clubbing, and I don't spend my weekends at bars. What bothers me is that almost every time I suggest doing something together, there's always a reason not to. She doesn't like the person, she doesn't want to meet new people, she doesn't feel like seeing her friends, she doesn't feel like getting dressed up, she's tired, she's not in the mood. I don't want to do these things alone. I want us to experience new things together. Lastly, I've been asked many times what I've done to support her and why I feel like I deserve support in return. I want to be very clear here. I have never asked her to run errands for me or do things on my behalf before. This was the first time I ever asked for help like this, and I asked because I was genuinely exhausted and overwhelmed. I wasn't expecting her to drive an hour to bring the suit to my partner's house. All I asked was for her to leave it on my bed so I could grab it on my way out. As for how I support her, I've been there consistently. I've helped her with research for school papers when she was stressed. I took an entire week off work when one of her relatives passed away because she needed someone with her. I've taken her car to get fixed multiple times. I text or call her whenever I can, which is several times a day, and I talk to her every single night after work. I also want to clarify that I don't spend a huge amount of off-duty time with my partner. The night at the bar was literally the first time I've ever seen him outside of work. The idea of all of us hanging out has been talked about for a long time, but it hasn't actually happened yet. I hope this clears up some of the misunderstandings and gives a fuller picture of the situation.
Update. Sorry it's taken me a little while to post an update. The past week has been emotionally draining, and I needed some time to actually process everything that's been happening between me and Sarah before putting it into words. Before getting into the update itself, I want to repost the clarification I added to my original post, since many people kept asking the same questions and I'm not sure everyone saw it. First, regarding why we don't live together. Before this new job, I simply wasn't earning enough to support two people. My apartment is very small and realistically not meant for a couple. At the same time, Sarah's working on her master's degree and only has a part-time job that doesn't pay much. She doesn't want to contribute to rent so that we could move into a bigger place together, so she still lives at home with her parents. Even with my new job, I still can't afford a larger place completely on my own while also paying student loans, utilities, my car payment, insurance, and other necessary expenses. Where I live, having a car isn't optional. Second, about how often we see each other. I know that 2 to 3 times a week doesn't sound like a lot, but we spend all of my days off together. This isn't something that changed recently. Even before this job, we didn't see each other more often. My previous job was still over 40 hours a week, and I was also in school at the same time. Another thing people commented on was me mentioning that Sarah is introverted. I want to be clear that I don't see that as a flaw. For a long time, I was perfectly happy not being very social either. What has changed is me. My current job is very social by nature, and I've realized that I actually enjoy being more outgoing than I used to be. This doesn't mean I want to go out constantly or live a party lifestyle. I see my friends or my cousin maybe once every month or two. I don't go clubbing, and I don't spend nights hopping between bars. What bothers me is that almost every time I suggest doing something together, there's always a reason not to. She doesn't like the person, she doesn't want to meet new people, she doesn't feel like seeing her friends, she doesn't feel like getting dressed up, she's tired, she's not in the mood. I don't want to do these things alone. I want us to experience new things together. Lastly, many people asked what I've done to support her, and why I feel like I should expect support in return. I want to make something very clear. I have never asked her to run errands or do things for me before. This was the first time I ever asked for help like that, and I only asked because I was genuinely exhausted and overwhelmed. I wasn't asking her to drive an hour to bring my suit to my partner's house. All I asked was that she leave it on my bed so I could grab it on my way out. As for how I support her, I've always tried to be there. I've helped her with research for school papers when she was stressed. I took a full week off work when one of her relatives passed away because she needed someone with her. I've taken her car to get repaired multiple times. I text or call her whenever I can, which is several times a day, and I talk to her every single night after work. I also want to clarify that I don't spend a lot of my free time with my partner outside of work. The night at the bar was literally the first time I had ever seen him outside of work. We've talked about all getting together for a long time, but it hadn't actually happened yet. I hope this clears up some of the confusion and gives a more complete picture of the situation. Now that all of that is out of the way, I want to clear something up. I'm not a spy, a hitman, or anything remotely dramatic like that. A few people seemed convinced that I was being intentionally secretive about my job, and some even called me a jerk for not disclosing it. Apparently, to some, advice can't be given unless I spell out my exact profession. I described more than enough details in my original post, and I'm simply trying to keep at least a small amount of anonymity. My career has a reputation for cheating for one reason only: unpredictable hours. That's it. Some dishonest people, and yes, there are plenty of them if you dig through places like random Q&A forums and questionable advice sites that show up on Google, take advantage of those hours. They use excuses like I got stuck on overtime, when in reality they're doing something they shouldn't be. In my personal experience, that kind of behavior isn't common at all. Unfortunately, Sarah went down an internet rabbit hole. She started searching things like my career, spouse, found hundreds of articles, most of which were harmless, and then fixated on the handful that claimed people in my field use their schedules solely as a cover for cheating. From that point on, those fears seemed to stick. Anyway, back to the actual update. I'm not naive. A lot of people pointed out that the only reason I admire my work partner's wife was because she was showing her best side in public. And of course, that's true. No one is perfect, and I don't expect anyone to be. What really stands out to me isn't just how she acted around me, it's what I hear at work. There's a surprising amount of downtime in my job, and during those moments, my partner and I talk about everything. We joke around, we vent, and we share stories. And in all that time, every single thing he has ever said about his wife has been positive. Naturally, I would hope that's true for most people, but there's something in the way he talks about her that I can't ignore. He lights up when he mentions her. He reminisces about their trips, their inside jokes, the silly stories, and even the completely random nights they've spent together doing nothing special. And that's when it hit me. I don't have that. I don't have those memories. I don't have those stories. I don't get to enjoy those moments with Sarah. And realizing that has been sitting heavily with me ever since. Sarah doesn't like being pushed out of her comfort zone. She doesn't enjoy spontaneity. She doesn't like being silly or playful. I don't think I ever fully realized how much that affected me until recently. Seeing my work partner and his wife joking around, laughing, and acting completely unguarded with each other right in front of me made something click. It showed me that a relationship can be fun. And more importantly, it made me realize that I wasn't actually having fun in mine. And that hurt. After I stayed over at my partner's house, Sarah barely spoke to me. Instead of real conversations, I received short, passive-aggressive texts. Things like how she hoped I enjoyed my romantic evening, or that she hoped he was worth it. None of it was said directly, but the meaning was clear. A lot of people pointed out how insecure she must be feeling, that we already don't get to spend much time together, and now, from her perspective, it probably looks like I'm suddenly getting close to someone new, while our relationship hasn't been as close as it could have been after 6 years. I really took that to heart, and for the first time, I genuinely saw her side of things, so I decided to try to fix it. The next time I had a day off, this past Sunday, I asked her out to brunch. It's one of the few activities she genuinely enjoys. I ordered us mimosas to help break the tension, and once things felt a little lighter, I tried to open up a real conversation about everything that had been happening. I started by acknowledging her feelings instead of defending myself. I told her, I know it sucks that we can't see each other as much as we want to right now, and believe me, I wish that weren't the case. But it feels like this has been creating more tension lately than it used to. I really want to understand how you've been feeling about all of this. I was really hoping for an honest, calm conversation. I wanted something where we could both talk openly, understand each other better, and maybe move forward with new compromises. Instead, she exploded. She told me that I don't believe I have any reason to be close to anyone but her. She said my work partner clearly has bad intentions, accused him of wanting something inappropriate from me. Then she turned on his wife, claiming she must be unhappy in her own relationship and was somehow trying to insert herself into my life. It just kept escalating, accusing after accusing, one more extreme than the last. Looking back on it now, I honestly think this came from a place of deep insecurity. It felt like she was lashing out, trying to push me back into a corner so I would reassure her and cut myself off from anything that made her uncomfortable. But in that moment, I was completely stunned. I tried to respond calmly. I told her that what she was saying wasn't true. I explained that there was nothing inappropriate going on, that these were just coworkers and their spouses, normal people. I even asked her what I could do to help her feel more secure or to prove that her fears weren't grounded in reality. None of it mattered. She kept attacking my partner, his wife, and eventually me simply for even entertaining the idea of being friendly with them. Every attempt I made to de-escalate just seemed to make her angrier. Eventually, I stopped talking altogether. We finished our meal in complete silence. She was visibly angry, and I just felt drained and uncomfortable. When we left the restaurant and got into my car, I started driving her home. She noticed almost immediately that I wasn't heading towards my apartment. That's when she started yelling again, accusing me of trying to get rid of her and of not wanting to spend time with me. At that point, I had reached my limit. I drove the rest of the way to her house without saying a word, while she continued to berate me the entire time. When we pulled up, she stayed in the car for another 10 minutes, yelling and venting, before finally getting out, slamming the passenger door shut, and storming inside without looking back. After I dropped her off, I went back to my apartment and just sat there in silence for a while. My mind was racing, my chest felt tight, and I genuinely didn't know what to do next.
Eventually, I called my sister. She's 2 years younger than me, but honestly one of the most grounded people I know. I spent about half an hour on the phone with her, just talking through everything, trying to make sense of how it had all spiraled so fast. At one point, I even asked her point blank, what the hell am I supposed to do now? She didn't tell me what to do, she just listened. And somehow that helped me realize I already knew what I needed to do. So, I made a decision. And yeah, maybe it was cowardly, after 6 years of being together, but I couldn't stomach another fight. I didn't want to be yelled at again. I was exhausted. So instead of calling her, I wrote a long text message explaining everything. How I felt, why I didn't think we were working anymore, and why I thought it was time to end the relationship. She didn't take it well. My phone started blowing up within minutes. Call after call, text after text. Angry, accusatory, relentless. Eventually, I just turned my phone off. The next day, I had to work. I tried, briefly, to continue the conversation over text, to at least let things end in a way that wasn't so bitter, but she wasn't ready. Every message circled back to insults, name-calling, and blaming. After a while, I realized there was nothing more I could say. I told her I couldn't be part of her life anymore, and I blocked her number. That was 4 days ago. Since then, I haven't heard from her again. She deleted her Facebook, and as far as I know, she's gone completely offline. And me? To be honest, I've felt more calm over these last 4 days than I've felt in months, maybe even longer. It's a weird feeling, this mix of guilt and relief. Part of me still feels bad. It's hard to walk away from something you invested 6 years of your life into, even when you know it wasn't working. But another part of me feels free. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I can just be myself. I can act how I want. I don't have to explain every decision, defend every friend, or justify every moment of silence or happiness or laughter. And maybe that's what hurts the most. Realizing that the second I stepped out of that relationship, I finally started to breathe again.